Hello guys, MonkeyBot here, and today we're going to be talking about my top 5 legendary lords that need to be moved in the Immortal Empires campaign. Now, I'm going to be honest, I think there's a lot more than 5 legendary lords that need to be moved in the campaign. Now, there are a few reasons why I think these legendary lords should be moved. I think some of them need to have more survival chances when being controlled by the AI. They are based on how many enemies they have in their current location, and some of them are actually based around their gameplay mechanics, which just don't make sense in the current situation that they're in. So that's enough said, so let's get straight into number 5. Coming in at number 5, we have N'Kari. Now, I don't think N'Kari needs a huge change, but I do think there's a few issues, especially with his early game campaign. So he tends to get stuck, basically, between a rock and a hard place, with the rock being Alarielle over here, and then the hard place being Altharion the Grim. So he takes out his initial enemy to begin with, and then he'll go down to take this second province here, and then after that he just tends to get a bit stuck. He will either get attacked in the rear by Alarielle, or he'll get attacked in the front by Altharion. Now, where I think he should be moved, I think he should just simply be moved to the other side of the Phoenix Gate, giving him Tor Dranol. This will change his starting enemy, which will be this Dark Elf faction here. This army will be moved to here, so he can then attack this starting army and then go to take Tor Anlik, and then eventually the Shrine of Cain, with this army being removed and this army remaining for Alarielle to start attacking. And then it's a race to the Phoenix Gate between Alarielle and N'Kari, and whoever takes the Phoenix Gate first will be in a good position for the rest of the campaign. So it's a little bit of an early race between these two now. With the Phoenix Gate being captured by N'Kari, this will give him a lot of freedom to go around and deal with Altharion one-on-one, and he will have a nice secure location to his west, as Count Noctilus will likely go up here and take the rest of the coastline, giving him a nice friend before Marathi goes and takes the continent for themselves, or until Tyrion goes up and takes the territory back. But this will just give enough time for N'Kari to set up a good base, and by the time Tyrion comes up and takes this coastline back, you will likely get Be'lakor coming down from the south to assist N'Kari. This change is basically to give N'Kari a little bit more time before his friends arrive and start helping him out, really upping his survival odds to allow him to potentially take out the continent for himself and become the dominant race of Ulthuan. Now that's it for N'Kari. Now moving on to number 4. Coming in at number 4, we have Teclis. Now, the problem I have with Teclis is that it's a very isolated campaign. So it starts down south in the Forest of Dawn, right at the south of the map, bordering the Southern Chaos Wastes. He takes out his Tzeentch faction here, and then he has two choices. He could either go against his natural enemy, which will be Kairos Fateweaver, but that would require you to take all of this red territory. And then you'll probably end up giving up trying to hold that territory, and then just sell it to Oxiodal over here in the west. And then the other option is to go north, which will then lead you to Tic-Tac-Toe in the west side, and then Krokgar in the east, giving you two enemies that aren't really natural enemies for High Elves, but to be honest, if you attack one, you are very much likely to be declared war on by the other, giving you two legendary lords to deal with in the early game, and neither of which are really ideal situations. You either go for territory you can't hold, or you fight two lords which you don't particularly want to be fighting as another Order-Tide faction. So what I would recommend is actually going back to where he was in the Star Tower. I think this is actually a very good location for him now in Immortal Empires. I will be honest, in Warhammer 2, I think this was a terrible start location for him. Lustria was a lot smaller, is a lot more congested, and the legendary lords were all very squished together. But now in Warhammer 3, Lustria is a lot more open, and there's a lot more territory to work with. You've obviously got two natural enemies here, with Luther Harkon with the Vampire Coast, and you've got Skrulk down here as the Lizard Men, and then you've also later on got Rakarth over here. And you can also, as a High Elf faction, decide which war you want to go be part of. obviously the human factions here tend to go to war with the lizardmen factions, and obviously, yeah, vice versa, the lizardmen tend to go to war against the human factions. And as a high elf, you can decide which side you want to join. Do you want to just join the lizardmen and fight for the great plan, or do you want to fight for the invaders of the human factions here? It's entirely up to you, giving you a lot more freedom and open space to actually expand and explore your campaign further. Much better location than down south, which is very restricted, and you'll end up giving up very quickly. So yeah, it's a very, again, simple change. Just give him a lot more freedom, a lot more open space, and a lot more choice in your campaign. Now that's it for Teclis. Now moving on to number 3. Coming in at number 3, we have Mother Ostankya. Now, with Mother Ostankya being one of the new factions introduced with the Shadows of Change DLC, I'm really hoping that the update that comes early next year is actually going to fix her start location, as I just don't like it. I'm going to be honest, it's not really bad as such. Like, you have some natural enemies, you've got the Dark Elves, you've also got an enemy legendary lord nearby with Marathi that you can deal with early game. You've also got some natural allies here with the High Elves, you've got some lizardmen down here, and then your natural progression would be up north fighting even more Dark Elves, maybe some Vampire Coast, leading up to 2 more allies with Alithanar and Grombrindle, and then you can fight up north to the Chaos Wastes. But I just don't understand it, to be honest. It doesn't make sense lore-wise. She is meant to be one of the Hag Witches, which are meant to be one of the mysterious protectors of Kislev, and she is nowhere near Kislev. She also has a mechanic here where she cannot recruit any of her Kislevite units until she controls one of the following capital cities, being Kislev, Erengrad, and Prague. And basically, the entire Kislev roster is locked behind this mechanic, and you can only recruit spiders, bats, wolves, and bears for the majority of your campaign until you are either allies or occupy one of those cities, and you are halfway across the map. Now, I do think she should start much closer to Kislev. I don't think she should start with one of the 3 capital cities. I think that's a bit bizarre for a Hag Witch, considering she's meant to be in the shadows. She's meant to be hiding out in the forest and ambush enemies of Kislev. So I don't think it makes sense for her to start with Prague. But I do think she should start nearby, which being this settlement here. I think the starting enemy should be changed up to a minor Khorne faction. So this entire province will be taken over by Khornate factions. There'll be a starting enemy right here, and then you go lead to take the rest of the province. And then you can either move up north into Kislev, or you can go straight into the Chaos Wastes up here to deal with Archeon, or you can move down south and take on the Chaos Dwarfs. I think this will be a much nicer campaign for her. You could also force a war with the main Kislevite factions. Maybe you're feeling a little bit rebellious, think that the Kislevites aren't worth of the land, and you can go to war against them, take Prague by force, which will probably piss off Kostalton and Katerin, and then they'll declare war on you. Or you could play it safe, be their friend, and just ally up as normal and hope for some confederations, unlocking the rest of your roster. I think this is a much better campaign for her. Yes, you've still got the same amount of enemies, you've still got the same amount of allies around you. I just think it plays much better into the lore of the Hag Witches, and it works very well with her mechanic, with most of the Kislevite roster being locked behind it. So yeah, that's it for Mother Ostankya. Now moving on to number 2. Coming in at number 2, we have Kugath. Now, we've all heard about the terrible points of Kugath, like how bad his starting location is, how bad his mechanics are, what he has to deal with, his technology tree. He's got a lot of problems going with him, hasn't he? But let's be honest, I think his start location is one of the major problems, and just moving him somewhere else could fix a lot of the issues that he is dealing with. So he starts off here in the Dragon Isles with Dragon Fang Mount. down here in the south, and then he's got this lizardmen faction to deal with. This is already a problem. He has to deal with a back and forth situation, so he attacks this army, gets this settlement, goes up here, and then he could either go through the water getting no replenishment, or he has to go back and then up. It's a long journey for Kugarth just to get his starting province. Another problem is these plagues do not cross the water. So plagues are supposed to infect the surrounding regions. So if I was to place a plague here, for example, it would then spread to the following regions surrounding it. But because these are individual tiny little islands, this plague here will never be able to infect these two regions here or this region over here. It will just stay on this one island and it won't spread, giving it a bad problem because if I wanted to get, where is it, the growth building, spreading this growth to all of the regions in your province is very helpful for Kugarth in the early game. Unfortunately, you cannot actually do that. And then you've got to deal with Gorst, which is already a problem. Not as bad as it was at launch of Immortal Empires, but it's still a tough fight to deal with. Very grindy, very painful, and having to deal with a mortars engine when you are an infantry-based faction with no missiles and no powerful magic, or at least in the early game, it's very difficult. Then ideally, you would like to go into Cathay, where you can start dealing with some humans, which is what Nurgle loves. He loves dissolving human beings with his plagues, but the reality is you are likely going to be declared war on Greasus, where you lack the anti-large bonus to deal with that, and you also have to start taking mountain climate, which is unpleasant for you, making your already expensive buildings even more expensive. You will eventually push up. You will eventually defeat Greasus, thinking it's over and you can start pushing in on Cathay, but instead you will get declared war on by Grimgor, who will march his way down extremely quickly, and then you have to take all of the mountains for yourself until you meet up with Korelek. So it's a really difficult situation for him. He's never going to actually be given a break and a place to build up, which is what Kugarth is about. He's meant to build up, build large, and just grind his enemies down through his plagues and through his armies. But I think there is an actual ideal solution for this, and that is to move him all the way up to just north of Kislev, and I think he should start in this region here. We know that Kugarth is a big hatred of dwarfs. Like if I go on to his skill tree here, he starts off with the hates dwarf perk, which gives him plus 10 melee attack when fighting against dwarfs and plus 15% weapon strength, which is perfect for actual fighting dwarves, which you never tend to do where you are starting currently. But just moving him up here gives him a nice little stage of attack. You will obviously be starting off with Karakadrak over here, taking this original province and meeting up with Throg, giving you a nice natural ally, and then you could even ally up with Helpit and then go in and invade Norska and then pushing into the Empire. This will actually solve one of the problems I was talking about in my previous video where Kislev and Cathay aren't dealing with any demons. Now Kislev will actually have a nice demon faction to deal with, being Kugarth. And it was a nice place to hold up. It works very well with his technology. He can even fall back into the Chaos Waste, where he gets a lot of technology bonuses for Chaos Waste climates. And he will likely be starting near another legendary lord from Nurgle, which I believe will be Tamakon, who will likely start here, over here in the plains of Zambejin, which is where he starts his campaign in the lore, so it will give him a nice Nurgle ally close up for when the Thrones of Decay finally releases. So yeah, that's it for Kugarth. I think this will be a much better location, much more defendable, more allies, he can spread plagues much easier, and he will just have a much better time, and he will be laughing his way to victory. Now that's it for number 2. Now let's move on to number 1. Now coming in at number 1, we have Boris Ursus. So Boris is in a very difficult situation, which I don't mind challenging, but it's definitely one of the most challenging campaigns out there. So we start at war with this Core Knight faction here. Very simple to deal with. Although he is dealing with chaotic wasteland climate, he does have a reduced penalty here, so the penalties aren't so bad when controlling these regions. But the problem there is that he's stuck again, like Nakari, between a rock and a hard place. So he's got Archeon the Ever-Chosen here, and then he's got Daniel here. And as an AI version of Boris, it will take a while, but he will always eventually be knocked out as soon as Throg the Unclean goes and takes over the rest of these dwarves and starts pushing him up here in the south. But I think he should still be dealing with chaos. I think dealing with chaos is definitely where he's suited, especially with his faction mechanics. But I think I'm going to be taking inspiration from the old world mod here and actually moving him down to Kislev, specifically in the Longship Graveyard. I think this would be a much better start for him. He's still going to be dealing with a variety of legendary lords. He's still going to have to deal with Wulfric, Throg, and Azazel. But this gives him a nice province to start with, giving him full-on green climate with the frozen wasteland. Frozen climate, and then he's got his full southern border secure, assuming that Festus doesn't wipe everyone out before Reichland has a chance to take Festus out. This gives him a much safer position. He will start pushing up north here. He will still be sandwiched between Wulfric and Throg, as I mentioned before, but if he manages to take them out, he will then push up even further north, and this will give a chance for Daniel to start pushing down south and having a conflict there, and maybe Daniel could even take him out and start invading the Empire, giving Daniel something to do other than just sitting around letting his allies do all of the work. So I think this last one is a very simple change, but I think it will be very effective in the campaign. He is also much closer to his friends, so he can make some natural allies, and he can start confederating sooner, as I know a lot of playstyles will be to abandon this and actually go down south and start making a home base down here, where I suggested that Mother Ostankya would start. But I think the Norska start will be much suited to him. He still has to deal with chaos, he's still the front line, and he still has enough challenge to make it exciting. And that's going to be it for my 5 legendary lords that I think should have new starting locations. As I said earlier at the beginning of the video, I do think there are more lords that need to be moved. So if you want to see my thoughts and opinions on those, I'm happy to get to those as well and create a second video. I'm also going to be starting a new series on this channel soon. So I'm going to be doing a live stream or later today. And I'm going to be doing achievement hunting. So I'm going to aim to get all of the achievements for beating every single race on legendary difficulty. I'm going to be starting with Kislev, but I'm going to be playing it on the Realms of Chaos campaign. So if you want to come in to watch that stream, I'll probably be live now if you're watching it the same day it's uploaded, and I'll also be doing videos on the achievement hunting as well. So that's going to be it for this video. Please feel free to share your thoughts and opinions on these changes that I suggested. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you wish they were moved somewhere else? But until that point, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more Warhammer content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.